All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Morales, and I'm with Maricopa County's Environmental Services, specifically working in environmental health. And today, with me, I have on the call Tessan McIntosh and also Judy Lee. And I've invited them if they have any comments or want to jump in and answer any questions to go ahead and feel free and do so. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Maricopa County Environmental Health Code changes, and we'll go ahead and get through the presentation and leave some time for questions after the presentation. So feel free to either hold your comments or go ahead and type them in the comments box, and then we'll get to those after the presentation.
David, you got muted.
I'm sorry. Let me start over here. With all our presentations, one of the things that we do is go over our vision statement and our mission statement. And as you can see here, as a recognized regional environmental leader, we will develop and foster innovative environmental health protection programs for the safety of our residents and their environment. You know, one of the things that I've always liked about working here at Maricopa County is that they do allow you to develop new ideas and run with those ideas. And it's cool to be able to see those ideas implemented to help protect public health that you had something to do with. The mission of Environmental Services Department is to provide safe food, water, waste disposal, and vector-borne disease reduction controls to the people of Maricopa County so that they may enjoy living in a healthy and safe community. You know, a lot of people think we're part of the health department, but we are truly environmental services, and we do more than just food. We also inspect the waste, drinking water plants, waste disposal plants, and we also have a vector program that goes out and collects mosquitoes and does some trapping and testing and some fogging throughout the county. So that's a little bit about who we are. So in talking about the changes that have just recently happened, and these were changes were just adopted October 6th of 2021 by our Board of Supervisors. And we're going to talk a little bit about the changes that have happened from the food code that we use. So we use the 2013 Fta Food Code, and now we've just adopted the 2017 Food Code. That's just one section that's embedded in our Maricopa County Environmental Health Code. As you can see here at the bottom of the slide, it's in Chapter 8, Section 2, Regulation 1. And then the second part of the presentation, we'll talk about the actual changes that we did to the Maricopa County Environmental Health Code as well. So there's other changes beyond just adopting the 2017 Food Code. But we'd want to go through really quick and take a look at the differences as we're moving from the 2013 to the 2017 Fta Food Code. And the Food Code does come out every 4 years. And even though it comes out every 4 years, it does take the FDA quite a little bit of time to actually release it after it's been adopted by them. So I believe this one came out January of 19, I think is when it was. And then it took the state some time to adopt it. And then obviously we're adopting it after the state. So it takes a little while. And obviously there's the sciences behind some of the changes that have been made, and some are just corrections. So we'll talk about some of the major changes from the 2013 to the 2017 Fta Food Code. And one of the biggest changes that we have in the 2017 Food Code is that there were some changes made so that the person in charge of an establishment has to be a certified food protection manager. And so that's one of the biggest changes that we'll see. Now, when the state was adopting their code, they had adopted, I believe it was July of 2020. Many of you may have been at those stakeholder meetings. I know the Restaurant Association was at these meetings, and one of the things that they asked the state is, hey, listen, due to the pandemic and due to some of the shortages with classes, we'd like some leeway before we actually start implementing this. So they came to an agreement that there would be an 18-month period before this would actually go into effect from the time that the state adopted it. So from July of 2020, the 18 months are up January of so December, I guess, of 2021, beginning January of 22 is when this will all start to take effect. And here at Maricopa County, just so everybody is aware, right now, all we're doing is educating both staff and our permit holders and stakeholders throughout. But we plan on moving forward beginning January of 2022. Another change that happened in 2-10311, it was amended. So the duties of the person in charge include daily oversight of employees monitoring hot and cold holding of time temperature control for food safety foods. So there's always been a section 2-10311 where we talk about all the duties of the person in charge. This one was just kind of another one that was added to it. And it's just saying that it is important for the person in charge to make sure that the required temperatures are checked on a regular basis, because that is one of the violations that we see most out of compliance, and we know it's one that can lead to foodborne illness. So under the duties of the person in charge, this is new. In the 2013 FDA Food Code, it talked about that if you had any cuts on your hands or on your wrists, that you had to have a bandage, a finger cot, or a finger stall that was impermeable. Yet there have been a lot of issues where we've had bandages and finger stalls and finger cots in food. And so one of the things that the 2017 Food Code has changed is that besides having a bandage, a finger cot, or a finger stall, you now have to have a single-use glove on top of that as well. So that's the new change to 2-401.13. In the 2013 FDA Food Code, we've always had procedures for vomiting and diarrheal events. They could be verbal or written. In the 2017 Food Code, they have now established that those need to be written. So if we're going to be training and we want to be consistent in our training, when it comes to these events, we need to make sure that we have written procedures. And so in the 2017 Food Code, there's no longer the option for verbal procedures. They all have to be written. In the 2013 Food Code, we talked about the separation of ready-to-eat foods from raw meats or raw animal foods. In the 2017 Food Code, they actually changed that so it's separation of fruits and vegetables from raw animal foods before they are washed. So there's added some clarification here, because you could get into an establishment and get into a conversation where it was like, well, although these carrots are stored amongst raw animal foods, they're still not ready to eat because they haven't been peeled, or these apples still haven't been washed. So in order to avoid any confusion, they just went ahead and said that the separation of all fruits and vegetables from raw animal foods need to happen in order to avoid cross-contamination. In the 2017 Food Code, they've added the word intact meat to 3-401.11, which is the cooking temperature for foods at 145 for 15 seconds. And the change here is there have been some confusion, because at what temperature does a steak need to be cooked to? Some people would say that a steak needed to be cooked to 145 for 15 seconds in the code. And other people would say, well, if it's been pinned and needled, it has to be cooked to 155. The part that was missing is that there was never the word intact meat. So now that clarifies that if you have a piece of meat that's intact that has not been pinned or needled, you can still cook that to 145 for 15 seconds. If it has been pinned or needled, then that steak has to be cooked to 155. And that's the difference here. And as you can see here, this is the temperature for cooking of 155. And it says here that anything that has been mechanically tenderized, injected, convoluted, all has to be cooked to 155. And also any eggs that are not prepared to a consumer order, meaning if you're going to be hot holding eggs, they still have to be cooked to 155. The one change that they made here is that it used to be 155 for 15 seconds. They've changed that to 155 for 17 seconds internal cooking temperature. And the reason for that change is because the FDA is trying to harmonize some of their cooking requirements to USDA's. And in order to be on the same page there, they've changed that to 17 seconds. And then with the 165 degree cooking temperature, they've decreased the cooking time for poultry, ballots, etc. So in the past, you had, if you were cooking any poultry, any ratites, any stuffed foods, stuffings containing fish or meat, they had to be cooked to 165 for 15 seconds. The change here now that it's 165 internal instantaneous or less than 1 second. So as soon as it hits 165, you're good to go. There's no more than 15 seconds on that. In the 2013 Food Code, they've changed the word plant foods, where it used to say, 2013 Food Code used to say fruits and vegetables. If you're going to be cooking fruits and vegetables, you have to cook those to 135 if you're going to be hot holding them. The new code now says that if you're going to cook any plant foods for hot holding, they have to be cooked and held at 135 or above. And that then includes your grains and your legumes. In the 2017 Food Code, there's also labeling requirements for the reduced oxygen packaging of frozen fish. So at the retail level, we've always allowed, if you're going to go ahead and reduce oxygen fish, we've always said that you had to start out with a frozen product, reduce oxygen, package it while it's frozen, and sell it frozen. The new 2017 Food Code has added that that product now has to have a label indicating that it is to be kept frozen until use for the customer. So in order to keep the customer safe, they just want to make sure that that label is on there. So that'll be a requirement that we will add whenever we're doing variances for this at our retail level, which is something that already happens at the processor level. Now, this is new. This wasn't in the 2013 Food Code, but cleaning agents and sanitizers must be readily available. So 4-303.11 added to require that equipment and utensil cleaning agents and sanitizers be provided and readily accessible. So sometimes we could show up to do an inspection and somebody say, well, I don't have any sanitizer, but I'm not washing dishes or I'm not cleaning anything right now. Well, this section is saying that you should have cleaning agents and sanitizers always available at your establishment. And that is so that we can verify as we go in and do inspections that you have the right cleaning agents. And if there's anybody servicing the equipment, that they can also make sure that they can see what you're using as far as any cleaning or sanitizing agents and make sure that they're working properly. And then finally, the last change that we'll talk about between the 2013 and 2017 FDA Food Code is that there is a new section for written emergency operation plan with prior approval. In the past, if you ever were without water or electricity, it was required that the establishment close on their own until they got that fixed. If we showed up, we would temporarily suspend the permit. But now in the FDA Food Code, it states that if you can provide a plan and that plan is approved by the department, we can allow you to go ahead and keep open and keep serving your customers. So it allows for flexibility for the regulatory authority and our stakeholders as well, again, with prior approval. So those were the major changes from the 2013 to 2017 FDA Food Code. I'd like to go over some of the changes that we did in our own environmental health code. So in Maricopa County's environmental health code, we have various chapters, and some of these chapters, not all these chapters have to do with food, some of them do, and some of them have to do with some of the other things that we inspect, such as public accommodations and schools. So we'll talk about some of the changes that we've done. And one of the things that you'll see is that if we have anything where you can see that it's been crossed out, those things were deleted from the health code. If there's anything that's bolded in all caps, those are things that were added to our health code. And so some of the changes that we'll talk about, you can see here in Chapter 1, Regulation 4 of our Maricopa County Environmental Health Code. Any person who's denied a permit has the right to be able to receive in writing why they were denied a permit. And then in 2, it says that they can also request in writing that a hearing before an environmental health officer. And you can see that we've actually crossed that out. And it says, as specified in Chapter 1, Regulation 6. And really, we crossed it out because we've actually extended that definition. So here you can see that in Chapter 1, Regulation 6, it says the hearing shall be held by the environmental health officer, which it said in the previous slide, or an independent hearing officer appointed by the department to show cause for why the permit should be issued. So this gives the director options as to who the hearing officer will be based on the situation. So it just gives a little more leeway. In Chapter 1, Regulation 5, when we talk about fees, one of the things that we want to clarify here is that no permit shall be issued and no permit is valid until all associated permit fees are received by the department and an inspection has been conducted and or the approval to operate has been granted by our department. There are times where we have establishments who will come in and, for example, they'll come in and pay for their plan review fees, and they'll get an inspection that they're okay to operate, and they're told that they still need to go pay their permit fee. So there's a difference between a plan review fee and then your operating yearly permit fee. And many times we'll see establishments that will start to operate thinking that they've paid for their plan review fee and that's all they need to pay. And so we're trying to kind of make sure that that doesn't happen. Sometimes we see these things and we're just trying to make sure that it's clear in code that you need both. You need to pay all your fees and you also have to have approval. Sometimes people will pay for their permit fee, but they don't yet have approval from the department to go ahead and operate. And because they think that they paid, they can go ahead and open. So just trying to clear that up in our code. In Chapter 7, Regulation 2, this is talking about the person in charge and being the certified manager. In the past, we had that they either need to be physically present or available by electronic or telephonic means. That does not apply anymore, so we've gone ahead and stricken that from our code. And then anywhere in our code where we had 2013, as you can see on that bottom paragraph, we've replaced it with the 2017 FDA Food Code. Chapter 8, Section 1, Regulation 1 talks about the definition for a shared facility. In the prior to the changes, a shared facility had to be 3 or more establishments sharing a kitchen. We've gone ahead and taken out the 3 or more. Anybody who shares a kitchen will now fall under a shared facility. In the past, we required that they must obtain a commissary permit. We've taken all the commissary requirements out of that. And then you can see that additional requirements under A at the bottom is what we have actually added. So if you have a shared facility, the owner must provide each permittee with the designated and labeled space for the storage of supplies of dry goods. All-time temperature control for safety foods must be stored and also have a designated labeled location in the refrigeration unit. And then finally, all parts of the facility must be available or made available to anyone from the department who's going in to do an inspection, and that falls upon the owner to go ahead and allow us that opportunity. Chapter 8, Section 1, Regulation 3 is just taking out one of the references there to the Arizona Revised Statute. Arizona updated their state statutes, which moved this section. So we've just taken out the old section and made sure that it's actually pointing to the right section within the updated Arizona Revised Statutes. Under plumbing, under Chapter 8, Section 1, Regulation 8, plumbing, this is kind of a long section, so it's 2 slides, but you can see at the bottom that it says that plumbing shall be in accordance with the Arizona Administrative Code R4-48102, and that was taken out. And that's because ARS R4-48102 was terminated and removed out of code. And we will now follow the Planning and Development Plumbing Code going forward, which is state recognized and approved by our Board of Supervisors. And we're looking at this making it so much easier to everybody just follow one code. I said that this goes on to the next slide, and you can see on the next slide, we've taken out a lot because we used to point to the 2009 International Plumbing Code, the 2010 as amended, Section 301, Chapter 3. So we've gotten rid of all of that. And like I said at the bottom, we're going to adopt Planning and Development's Plumbing Code as approved by Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. So that should get everybody on the same page. And not only did we do this for Chapter 8, which is our food code, but we've done that throughout with the other codes where plumbing comes into play. And you'll see that in the public accommodations and the school grounds chapters as well. In Chapter 8, Section 2, Regulation 5, there was a lot of requirements that we had in our Maricopa County Environmental Health Code regarding slash-resistant gloves, cloth gloves. All of that was taken out of our code because that is all now in the 2017 Fta Food Code. So we no longer have to reference our own code because it's now in the new code. The only one thing that's still not in the new code that we want to keep in this section is that latex gloves may not be used in direct contact with food. So that's still not there, and as a county, we want to continue to keep that in our code. Chapter 8, Section 1, Regulation 1, under definitions of pasteurization, we've taken out one of the cooking temperatures for pasteurization. And the reason why we've done that is because at the retail level for pasteurization, most of what we see is 155 for 30 minutes. Besides the 175 for at least 25 seconds, there is a whole table that the state has, and they've updated their frozen dessert pasteurization requirements. So in order to go ahead and do that, we're just going to go ahead and keep this one in here and have people refer to the state code with any alternative cooking or pasteurization temperatures. Along with that, the state, like I said, has updated their codes. And so when it comes to frozen desserts in Chapter 8, Section 6, Regulation 6, one of the things that we're going to require here at Maricopa County, you can see in A variance is required for a food establishment that prepares a frozen dessert by mixing bases for immediate consumption using alternative pasteurization processes. So if you're going to have a local business and they're going to bring bases in and start mixing those bases or adding milks to those bases, that's going to require a variance from our department. If it's just one frozen bag of, one pasteurized bag of a product and it's dumped into a machine and that freezes it and you make ice cream cones out of that, not a problem. You can go ahead and do that. But once we start mixing bases at the retail level, then we're going to probably look into possibly getting a variance for that. Also, the state has said that no wholesale at the retail level, no wholesale, offsite sales, or sales from self-service retail case or frozen desserts are allowed unless a license is obtained in accordance with Arizona Revised Statutes 3-607. So those are some of the state requirements that we have for frozen desserts. Now, Chapter 10, we're getting into residence accommodations. These are our hotels and our motels. And one of the things that we already have in our food chapter that we don't have in this chapter, and also in our school grounds chapter, is the new owner transition. And it's worked so well in food that we wanted to kind of move it over to some of these other sections as well. And this is for when an establishment is being sold to another person. The department may grant a new owner of a residence accommodations, hotel or motel, the approval to operate without a permit, provided the following requirements are met. And first, the new owner shall receive written approval from the department in order to operate. The time between the ownership change must be no more than 30 days. The previous owner must have a permit that's issued to them. And then the facility must not be going major remodeling or construction at time of this ownership change. And then finally, the owner agrees that if they have any imminent health hazards such as fire, flood, electrical, issues with chemicals, missing plumbing fixtures or anything like that, that they will close on their own during this 30-day period. And that allows them to kind of seamlessly continue to work as they go through their ownership change. So that's something that, again, has worked really well in food. And now we're actually adding it to our public or residence accommodations chapter. I said that we would see the plumbing again in the later chapter. So in chapter 10 of residence accommodations, we're also stating here that we will follow planning and development's plumbing code going forwards as it is state recognized. In chapter 13, which is our school grounds, we talk about in section 1, we've also added the same new owner transition, the same requirements that I just reviewed for the public accommodations apply as well to school grounds. And then also, we've also added the plumbing section here where we will follow P&D's plumbing code going forward because it is state recognized. So those are some of the changes that we did to our code, our Maricopa County Environmental Health Code. And so we have the summary of changes between the 2013 and 2017 Fta Food Code, and then our Maricopa County Environmental Health Code 2021 changes. We have links to this on our presentation. This will be on our website, and we will make that available to everybody as well. All right. Well, I know you guys are busy. If there are not any other questions, that is all that we had for you guys today. Thank you so much for being here. Like I said, we will have this information on our website for you guys to go ahead and access. And again, feel free to contact us if you have any further questions. If something comes up at a later time, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions. So thank you so much. You guys have a great day. We'll see you guys. Goodbye.
Thank you.